Welcome to It's the Economy. After a brief early dip, Indian markets in general and IT stocks in particular have recovered. The rupee too, while lower, is not the worst performing currency today. But two issues about the impact of the visa fee hike. Important one, impact appears to be more on Indians rather than Indian IT companies, given that US companies are hiring a lot more under H1B than Indian IT companies. Secondly, the hit may not be this year. It may be next year because this year's lottery is over. Now, given that the US is attacking India's goods and services exports, we need to watch the overall impact on India's current account, rupee, and indeed employment and economic growth itself. And to do exactly that, I have with me two stalwarts, Mohandas Pai, a veteran of the IT space, an investor, and of course now with Aarin Capital, and Madhavi, Arora, the economist from Emkay Global. Mr. Pai, Madhavi, thank you very much for your time. Mr. Pai, is this a fair characterization? The impact is more on Indians seeking employment rather than Indian IT.
I think that's a very correct characterization, primarily because there are a lot more Indians applying for H1B than any nationality, and they belong to many more companies than the IT service industries. The IT service industries hire people locally, they build their development centers, they're insulated. And like you said, Latha, it doesn't apply for this year because this year the lottery is over. And I think they're going to issue visas. Applies for the next year. That means it will take one more year for people to apply and pay any fee. I'm sure the number of applications will go down drastically. The stock of H1B is not impacted as of now. The stock of H1B that is not impacted as of now. Okay. And the stock, if nobody tampers with it, will last for a long period of time. So my view is the impact will be very less. And also, Latha...
So, Mr. Pai, Mr. Pai, I actually, you're both an investor as well as someone who has been an insider of tech. How are you seeing this evolve? Will more be outsourced to, eschew the H1B impact? And also because there aren't enough IT professionals or similar talent people in the US. Do you see more getting outsourced at all? Is that the way we should take a positive read?
Latha, you saw the MIT study recently, right, about the use of AI in enterprises. How are global enterprises going to use AI? There's nobody but these IT service companies can help them. They have the framework, they have the vertical LLMs, they have the talent, they have the execution skills. So naturally, more work will move offshore. Latha, after the COVID, we saw a surge in GCCs. What does it mean? It means the CTO of global enterprises understood your people don't have to be in front of you to keep your IP and do great things for you. They can be anywhere, right? You can work in New York and you can be in Dallas or Florida. Now you can be in Bombay, be in Bangalore or anywhere else. So they have shifted the GCCs, 1,750, 1,800 GCCs. So more work will shift offshore because the work is fungible. The work is electronic and can easily be done. The skills are here. There's nobody else. The US doesn't have the talent and people are not doing that kind of skills. And Latha, you're seeing the data too, that, Indian companies pay the people in the US more than $100,000 for H1B, plus the cost of travel, plus the cost of leave, plus the cost of so many things. And I think this idea that they're all cheap labor is absurd.
Yes.
I think more work will move offshore and offshoring will improve. And I think there'll be a tremendous jump here. So on-site work will come down. That's my understanding.
Okay. Madhavi, what's your assessment on the macroeconomy? Until now, we were only looking at this 2% of GDP impact of the tariff on goods exports. Now, a new can of worms has opened. Your assessment of the current account deficit and export growth this year, but more importantly, next year?
Latha, we have to see it in a broader perspective, firstly. Unfortunately, services now has been dragged in the trade war in some sense or the other. And the way US is now sort of telling the world that, I want to be producer of services as well. So they largely have been consumers, right? So insofar, there was being impacted only on the good side. Now, when they are sort of getting services on board, there are two ways I can understand this bit. One is that US wants to essentially become a producer economy. Of course, it will come with a cost in the medium term. But at the same time, I think it is going to be used as a tactical way for the US to negotiate with India on the ongoing trade deals. That's the first macro impact for us. In terms of numbers, again, you have to see it from 2 or 3 perspectives. The three broad macro channels with which we'll have hit. One would be, of course, remittances. So our broad numbers suggest the remittance impact may not be too much for the incremental potential H-1B workers that would have gone to India, probably less than even 1 billion. So that's not a big concern for me. Of course, there could also be, increase offshoring, as you guys were mentioning earlier. So as of now, Indian companies largely maintain a 70-30 offshoring to onshoring ratio. In fact, and they've been very agile over the last 10-15 years. They've actually reduced their dependence on H-1B visa. And even in the COVID period as well, they were able to sort of shift to offshoring very smoothly. And we saw the, advent of GCC also coming our way. So the BOP impact from the lost remittances easily is going to be offset by, partially offset at least by increased services exports that we may see over the coming years. To be sure, that could also be replaced by nearshoring to countries like, say, Mexico or even in ASEAN countries. So we'll have to keep that also in mind. The third impact would be, of course, the outflow that we see from education-related, remittances, which
that
is
will go down.
outward remittances, which is basically again a modest number of around 6.5 billion, which is less than 0.15% of GDP. So that could get rerouted from the US elsewhere, or probably get reduced at the margin. But at this point in time, the BOP impact is pretty modest in my view in the near term. Of course, the medium term implications could be severe for IT companies. But we've seen that in the past that IT companies have been pretty agile and very adaptive in terms of changing their growth model or changing their strategies, business strategies and stuff like that. And they also would have some time in hand, right? Next 6 to 9 months to prepare for this change that is going to hit their margins or revenue.
I actually am worried about the macro more than IT companies.
In the immediate run, not
where, almost it's agreed, and, we have an insider telling us that it is marginal, like Mr. Pai. But Mr. Pai, I am more, we are very, I guess we're talking about the medium term in slightly facile terms, because the terrain is shifting in weeks, not in months or years. So I'm worried about the Hire Act. That is clearly 25% tax if you export a service, if you do a GCC. And we've got some kind of a rehearsal in the way NVIDIA was treated. Okay, you export chips to China, but give me 15%. Should we be worried about such a change in terrain even for GCCs?
Latha, you are a brilliant economic observer, all right? Global industry, global enterprises work through structures of subsidiaries all around the world, right?
Yeah.
Apple keeps all its overseas profits in Ireland.
Absolutely.
All the global companies who outsource have their subsidiaries all over the world. What they will do is they'll ask the Indian companies to bill to the subsidiary because it gets consolidated into the US accounts, right? More than 50% of the business of Standard & Poor is outside. The source of revenue outside, which are accumulated, they're in tax-sheltered countries. So instead of billing to the US, you'll bill to Ireland, to the same subsidiary of the holding company. So where will there be a tax? The money will accumulate there. There'll be an income, there'll be an expense, and don't have to pay this tax. So structuring is very easy. So right now, I'm not very concerned about that. And remember, the US is has the net surplus in the services trade, $1.3 trillion deficit in goods, and maybe $600-700 trillion surplus in services. If all countries start putting a 25% tax on the US services, they're going to get hit. India removed the Google tax, right?
Yes.
Just now to keep Trump happy. The Google tax will come back. After that, people don't care.
Yeah.
People will not care. You're putting so much, hurting us so badly. We'll also do that. And American tech companies will get hurt very, very badly. Yep. Like China kicked out NVIDIA right now. And China is a very huge market. So I think we've got to watch what will happen. My estimate is all the tech companies will go to Trump and work out a deal with him to say that without having H-1B come in there, and they don't need this kind of a tax on services imports. And if they do, they're going to be in deep trouble. The US dominates the world in technology. If you look at the valuation of the top 10 digital companies, they make up a large part of S&P 500. And they're the drivers of the US economy in terms of capital investment this year, right? And I'm very sanguine about it. Let's wait and see. And you can expect the unexpected from President Trump. But I'm very sanguine that many of these IT companies will fight back.
No,
There will be
that's
some sanity very
very important takeaways. More as the accountants will outsmart the economists, and we can have tax planning. Secondly, we must remember that others can hit back. I mean, the way in which EU and all countries have even declared Palestine as two states clearly show that they are willing to dare. You'll take this much and not further. So we could see that copybook play if the tax, tyranny goes too far. But Madhavi, aside from all this, yes, I do believe that even India has stood its ground in a very dignified manner. But would you worry that somewhere in the coming years, employment growth could be facing some at least near-term challenges? Because of this, stream of slings and arrows we are getting.
I agree, Latha, because, in the current year, it may not impact the revenues of IT companies, but it will start hitting them both on margin revenue from FY27 onward if this continues. Obviously, as I said, it's a signaling mechanism from the US that they want to localize a lot of this STEM employment. So that obviously will have impact on domestic market as well. But to some extent, as Sir was also mentioning, that there could be offsets that we may see in the medium term. The models could be very adaptive and agile, and we'll find ways and means to ensure that, companies find a way to remain profitable. But clearly, I think there are multiple factors in which, IT companies could get impacted. The demand environment in the US is also going to be difficult. There will be potential inflation in local and existing H1B holders as well as offshore shift, which may also lead to some, wage hit in India as well. So I think medium term, if the IT sector outlook remains a little less certain, obviously you will have impact in the organized economy, where IT segment is, a large chunk of the organized hiring space. So clearly that would be a big hit. And of course, they are the biggest source of services exports for us as well. Even if the GCCs at this point in time are growing in a much accelerated fashion, if there is a higher tax that come into our way, obviously I don't think that would be the case. But in a hypothetical situation also, if we assume that it would end up becoming a reality, I think then we are in a big fix in terms of, the services exports.
No, as Mr. Pai says, the world will always find a way to sidestep.
Companies have been very adaptive. We have seen that IT companies have been very agile in terms of how they have been, able to sort of play with their models in terms of ensuring that, they remain profitable in the market. So I don't think that it would be...
Unfortunately, out of time, Madhavi, Mr. Pai, thank you very much. This is just the start of the conversation. I think we will have many more occasions. These arrows are not going to stop. And we will need your analysis constantly and your optimistic interpretation. Wrap up on Bazaar. Chartbusters coming up.